Hey there, welcome to episode 172 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 7:43 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on Friday, June 12, 2026. We normally publish new episodes of Cafe Genius Impresario on Fridays, often in the morning. 2 checkboxes checked. Today's title and topic, Let It Snow. I'll give you a little hint. Snow and snowpack and then snow melt are what provide us water. Strangely enough, the Colorado River, snow, the whole thing. It's like water from the sky. Let it snow. If you are not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program, or perhaps Cafe Genius in general, well, let me tell you what. Cafe, 2 F's, no accent on the E. An homage to Cafe Centro, a small coffee shop in South Park, San Francisco, very near what is today the Oracle Ballpark, formerly the AT&T Ballpark, formerly the Pac-Bell Ballpark. South Park is an actual park, trees, picnic tables, grass. It's very nice. It's where Jack Dorsey was working on Twitter once upon a time, for better or worse. Cafe Centro used to have the tagline where startups start. That was generally true. Sadly, and I'm not kidding, I'm totally serious, sadly, Cafe Centro did not really make it very far after the pandemic. As far as I know, they were speaking or they were writing of reopening at some point, but I don't know that took place. I had been there several times. It's a cool place, and I say often that the Greater Vegas area, if there are to be startups, if there are to be entrepreneurs pursuing their entrepreneurial and perhaps innovative endeavors, we need more Cafe Centros here. Genius is an homage of sorts to the genius lunches of the downtown project days, when people who were working on their various endeavors would stop in an ad hoc, scheduled sort of a, hey, what are you doing tomorrow kind of thing. And I was not an entrepreneur in the downtown project. However, I knew a lot of them. And if I was in town for my Intel Corporation travels, I would be sometimes invited along. So just to have a conversation, see what's going on, what's going up, what's going down, gossip, progress, and then go back to whatever it was you're doing. About an hour and a half lunch, just a quick meetup. It reminds people who are toiling away on their startups or whatever they're working on to don't put it down for all day. Don't think you have to go talking all day to a bunch of people. Just a quick lunch to reconnect with humans who are in a similar boat. It's probably good for mental health, and it's probably good to just go outside. So one of these days we'll reconstitute the Genius Lunch concept in the modern era. And finally, the Impresarios audio program to which you are listening now. That's Impresarios with 2 S's. The Impresarios are the people who do cool things. I like to think I'm one of them. Sometimes we have interviews. It's been a long time, but in the early episodes, the two-digit episodes, probably the first 10 or so, we had some guests and some nice conversations. We'll have to bring that back. I can't even get people to meet up for the Genius Lunch. How am I going to get them to actually commit to answering questions? We'll see. We'll see what's going on. So on that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I will read to you. And the links for today's episode, there are the 2 usual, because we continue to have only me as the host. There's the show, there's the website link for the show, there's the host link, that's me, and then we have 3 topical links for today's episode. So we'll run through those very quickly. I'm not going to read the URLs because they're too long for the episode links for today. But they're there. They're there in the episode description. Summary of today's episode. Difficult to locate just yet, but the LVGEA, that's the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, has published some plans that seem to match the key industries we have mentioned previously. The associated webpage, by the way, on the LVGE website is no longer there as a way forward for continuing economic diversity efforts. But where will the water come from? I know talking about water may not have an immediate connection to the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, which is our usual favorite topic. But when you think about it, water is a part of any ecosystem. Because wherever there are humans, there must be some water nearby. That is life. That's how life works and continues to work. So kind of interesting. I literally came upon the article that I will reference from. Can you hear the production by a street noise? Sounded like a dirt bike. From KTNV. I found that article. I didn't find it. It found me last night. I stumbled upon it and I said, oh, that fits into the, like, hey, we need some water. Water. So the links for today's episode, as usual, the cafegenius.org website, cafegenius.org. Visit that website and be amazed and impressed someday at how much information and how nice it looks and so on. For the moment, I'm merely putting the links in all of the episodes, so it's there to be found. My to-do list has had website improvement for audio program properties as a to-do item, shuffling up and down the list for way too long. I should do a whole episode on procrastination sometimes maybe later. But keep it in mind, someday we'll have a launch party. The host profile page linking everything, that's me. The buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page. It's like a flexible link tree. I have links to all of my audio programs. There's a little biographical information at the top. There's some affiliate links towards the bottom, right after the projects that I'm working on. You don't have to spend any money. You can go and visit the website, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, and pay nothing. Buy nothing. You don't even have to click on anything, really. But that is I don't have to maintain this website profile page that I can always reference, and it always points to all of my various endeavors. So, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. Do note that the Monday morning Buy Me an Update audio program was originally published exclusively at buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo/posts. Now we publish it there first. The namesake remains. And then 2 hours later, it publishes in all the other usual places: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. There's an RSS feed. You can find all that stuff there. Coffee Solo, we'll talk about that another time, but also linked from there. The articles for today's episode. What is it, USPR? I'm totally spacing on the name, what it stands for. USPR. It would be nice if I just had the tab open. Hang on. Yeah, right as soon as I paused. That's the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. So that's water, among other things. So U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, govern.gov, usbr.gov. Concerning the Colorado River Basin, it's the post-2026 plan for water. We'll get into this a little bit, but there have been some disturbing predictions. Predictions are predictions, so you can't get too worried, but I mean, sometimes the predictions are based on real data concerning a water downturn, a stored volume downturn at Lake Mead, which is where the water comes from as far as Las Vegas is concerned. And in the midst of water rights negotiations between the various states, I'm going to mention this later, that depend on this water source and water supply, the government is going to publish, the federal government is going to publish the final allotments and whatnot based on an agreement that's being hammered out now. Apparently it's a race between these various states and then Iran, Israel, and the U.S. to agree on terms. Fingers crossed for both. It's going to be interesting for water, and that's the topic of today. That we need to let it snow, please. A report on LVGEA strategic plan. It's a KTNV. I think that's Channel 3. Quick interview. It's a brief article. I think it's a 2-minute video segment where almost half of it is like not totally relevant. It's a quick interview with Danielle Casey, the CEO of LVGEA, and they apparently announced the strategic plan on Thursday, which is yesterday as we're recording this. I could not find anything. I mean, maybe it's on there somewhere tucked away. I don't know. Couldn't find anything on the lvgea.com website, but I would anticipate this will be available soon. As I mentioned in the summary, they've removed, this is a link that I've referred to countless times in various episodes of this program. they've removed the key-industries link, levga.com/key industries, that used to list the industries that they still talked about yesterday. So I assume they're going to promote all those key industries up to the strategic plan report or something. Who knows? So when that comes out, we'll probably talk about it some more. So today is sort of just some ideation. And then I'm going to point to a book. I talked about this book in an entire episode a while ago, Lost in Austin. So you can click on the link, or you can find that previous episode for the full author background and link to the actual publisher website, I think. I don't know if you want to know which episode that was. Probably not. You're not going to go back and listen to it. But if you click on this link, it's at thehill.com. You may or may not agree with The Hill, but this is more of a special interest, I guess, or a human interest, perhaps. And it's basically a rundown on the book, Austin, which talks about the transition Austin went through when it was mostly about arts, music, comedians, the good ones, and a cultural Austin. UT Austin is right there. It is the state capital, so you have kind of an intermingling of political figures and students and people in the arts and creative works and the restaurant, service industry, and so on. It sounds a lot like Las Vegas. Not really, but kind of. And then when it became a tech center, when the Nerd Bird, I cannot remember the airline, was it American Airlines, would fly back and forth morning and evening commutes in both directions, so you could live in Austin and work in Silicon Valley, or vice versa, or you could go there for meetings and whatnot. So you could connect, or they were connecting Silicon Valley with Austin as a alternate, secondary, different, next Silicon Valley, perhaps a tech center. But it did have tremendous impact on the economy, the flavor, keep Austin weird, kind of faded away. So something to think about. Kind of related to, anyway, we'll touch on that a little bit. This is not a book report. So let's get started. Conservation and recovery for the win. Or is that for the water? FTW. We are going to talk about water today. I am not a water scientist, but I do enjoy drinking it. And so I want to point out again, though only in passing, how advanced Southern Nevada is in the area of water conservation and recovery, or generally managing the water that is available and which becomes available, and marshaling that water into Lake Mead or whatever processing a water treatment plant, usually, whatever processing goes on between where the water came from and Lake Mead. I hope they process it out of Lake Mead also when we turn those faucets on like magic. Sort of imperative, given the historic water rights situation here in Vegas, or Nevada, Southern Nevada, and all of Nevada, but certainly Southern Nevada. That's where I am, most important part. It's sort of imperative, given the historic water rights situation and the volume of water available in the Colorado River Basin, not necessarily increasing, snow melt availability in various climate circumstances, and weather conditions, and of course, demand. Evaporation does count, but figures into the overall management process. There have been mentions that the water evaporation, I think it is the water evaporation off the surface of Lake Mead is greater than water wasted in any of the other water some of the places in Vegas where people would say, well, how come the Bellagio fountains, or how come this? So the water efficient usage is better than surface evaporation, I guess. I can't verify that, but I think that's what I heard somewhere. And the take home is that water that evaporates does return somewhere at some point. So as long as it doesn't venture too far on our windy days, but evaporation is not like total loss. But it's still noteworthy. You can't really drink evaporated water. There are a few places around Nevada, Southern Nevada, by the way, that are pursuing moisture farming. I'm adapting that term to that. That's from Star Wars, remember? And yeah, so if we see Luke Skywalker scooting around on his land speeder, we're making progress. Yeah, so I have commented on this before, that water status in Southern Nevada really should be reported on, as are the current temperature and weather conditions whether it's windy, raining, snowing, etc., but with higher priority. So if you visit a news website and some other websites, they'll show you the weather. They should show you the water level of our main water source every day, all the time. Higher priority than the temperature. But if you turn on all of the faucets in your home and you find water flowing freely, I was going to say, if you look out the window or if you go outside, you can pretty much figure out the weather. You will have some sense of the weather. But if you turn on all the faucets, see, I was trying to make a point here. If you turn on all the faucets in your home and find water flowing freely, you still have no idea how much water is not actually where it really needs to be over the next couple of years, which I would hope is Lake Mead. In once again, a me-centric view. So the point is, we report on the weather, even though we can tell what the weather is all the time. We do not report on the water levels until the water levels become dangerously low. That seems like a problem. And I'll tell you exactly why it's a problem, because once they stop reporting on it, the impression is, oh, I guess everything's fine now. But we're like 10 minutes away from catastrophic drought. As it happens, there are some negotiations happening as this episode is recorded. So somewhere this week, probably next week, I can't remember the day they're going to finalize. That might be finalized today. I don't recall. Concerning the water supply and distribution from the Colorado River to Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. Not to mention indigenous peoples in the U.S. and some places in Mexico. So those are other places with some water rights. If you follow this news regarding negotiations, you may also have heard that Nevada, pardon me, do I have water here? Yay. Ironically, very nice. Enjoy it while it lasts. So if you do follow the news, you'll see that Nevada, and maybe others, maybe Arizona, other states, depends on the water rights negotiations. But Nevada may see a reduction in water availability in the 40 to 70% range. I've seen all those numbers, various mentions, so nothing is final yet. We'll have to see. And that our near-term snowpack and snow melt possibilities are not looking great. Certainly not this upcoming winter, for later this year, and possibly not for the following year. Drought is real, even if we don't want to talk or think about it. This is why inviting more people to live here and more industries to establish business properties here, like move or purchase buildings and move people and take up water. That's why it's such a good idea. Maybe a great idea. Let us ponder. And I had an interesting conversation with somebody at the water district. I said, why do they keep building out, growing the population? And he said, yeah, we're required by law to deliver water to humans that live here and whatever other circumstances. So physics does not apply to that regulation. So where does the water come from? They do a bunch of trades and swaps and all that to get water rights from other places so that Lake Mead's water fraction for Nevada can go up a little bit. But it's still a dicey proposition. And I don't mean the six-sided cubes that you throw on a table in one of the casinos here. Key industries and gentrification. Let's think about this for a minute. And again, Austin situation worth looking at in that book. So the key industries page has gone missing on the LVGE website, as I mentioned, which breaks many of my links, unfortunately. It doesn't do a straight 404. It puts up a page it says this page is not available, I think it is. And there are some links along the right side, but they're not really like, here's where you'll find the same content, but in a different place. That would be nice. Or a 301 redirect would be nice too. Yeah, really, they should redirect. Put some sort of information about where to find that information so that legacy URLs are not just left dangling, as the word can be used. Hopefully that will be remedied. Hopefully this is a temporary situation in light of the recent announcement and press coverage of the forthcoming strategy report. Who can say? I'm not going to hold my breath. But this is not something we need to look at. As we have discussed in previous episodes, pretty straightforward, the key industries. If we grab a quote from the article about the strategic plan, which is the article I linked, the KTNV rundown, it's fairly brief. You can skim over it. Grabbing that quote, these key industries still include advanced manufacturing, technology, fairly vague, business and financial services, they'll call it fintech, which doesn't have to be in Nevada, so that one's a weird one, Health and life sciences. Healthcare is actually one of the more quickly growing, is that the correct use of those words? Quickly growing industries in Southern Nevada. So I guess that's good. Life sciences, more like the med school that opened at UNLV and medical research, etc. And creative industries, which I can only, well, I'll get to that in a second. Creative industries. As I've mentioned previously, if advanced manufacturing addresses sustainability issues, such as minimizing processed water use, minimizing water pollution, which can be treated out. So as long as the water is recoverable from the manufacturing processes, then okay. And zeroing water damage, that's when you actually make the water impotable in any, reasonable number of generations, like dumping processed chemicals and other manufacturing waste into waterways. I mean, that just ruins everything for everyone for a long time. So don't do that. These are innovations which can not only benefit local manufacturing as they make those manufacturing methods, facilities, etc., as they make them more sustainable, more efficient, but would be exportable technology to other water-constrained places. So that would be, born and raised. That's a different thing. But hey, technology coming out of Nevada. There is a tendency for people to imagine Nevada as all of Nevada as the Vegas Strip with no real notion of what else goes on here. And that's me. That's who I'm talking about. I'm talking about me. I don't really know what's going on here. Health and life sciences may use water. That depends. Depends on exactly what they're doing. The rest of those key industries are not generally water intensive, although put a pin in the technology item for later, unless they start leaning into AI, and then we have local AI data centers popping up in the area. I don't know about that. AI is allegedly to be one of the focal areas of innovation in Southern Nevada. We'll find out. This appears to be generally unpopular in notion and unlikely if anyone looks at and enforces water budgets. Nope, we're not going to use any water whatsoever, as long as they're held to that. I can't imagine anyone wanting to build. Now, I'm going to point it out later too. There's the Innovation Center here in Southern Nevada, basically a collection of Enron resources when Enron was going to get into internet access. Forget about that. Purchased for pennies on the dollar by local entrepreneur Rob Roy and turned into Switch. So the Innovation Center and Switch, they host, I don't even know how many servers, but they're 100% uptime, air-cooled, triple redundant power supplies, all stuff. So there is a way to do this stuff, but the GPUs in modernity are generating far too much heat and require far too much water cooling, far too much electricity, power, energy. So I should add, based on the excerpt that I read earlier, I should add the rest of the paragraph with the list of industries does indeed say at the end of the paragraph, it's a 2-sentence paragraph. This list is designed to attract high-wage jobs, businesses that will grow, and ones that will have a minimal impact on the region's shortage of water. That's good to say. That is good to have that quote in there. Great. At least somebody's thinking. As I will mention later, I would like the data to be visible. I would like the examination analysis. Ideally, there are environmental impact reports that are associated with and economic impact reports. But ideally, those have been done explicitly to determine what the maximum number of people who could be imported talent, like how many people would move here and sizes of facilities and stuff. So some boundary conditions would be interesting. We'll see what's in there. Now, the article mentions training a local workforce to fill so-called high-wage jobs. My question has been for some time, years, when is this going to start in earnest? I've lived here for 13 years. That's at least enough time to have a completely entrepreneur, innovative technology, leading edge, not necessarily AI, but just a number of things that would fit into the jobs described in this report that's forthcoming. Those job skills should already be floating around, but they're not. They're getting started, I guess. So to me, that's 13 years that that wasn't applied well. Adult education and upskilling are great. I do it all the time. I read constantly. I'm always trying to learn new things. I know that's not quite the same thing, but the mindset should always be, what else can I learn? These are not guarantees, though. You cannot snap your fingers, make this the next Silicon Valley, and suddenly populate it with locals who have all the job skills they need, along with the competence, and not to mention experience. So it's kind of a dice roll right there, too. If existing companies do establish a presence in or relocate to or start up in Southern Nevada, a talent pool will be essential. And part of previous messaging to such recipients did include having people relocate to Greater Vegas to become locals. So in other words, the Office of Economic Development was saying, hey, move here and become a local. Imported talent, high wages, and gentrification, 3 great tastes. And by the way, when you import talent in a place that is supposed to be so brilliant, where the UNLV, various offices there, then now the med school is touted for excellence and so on. But when you have to import talent because you cannot hire locally, that sends a devastating message. So that must be done carefully, I think. So 3 great tastes. This is why I've included the link to some reporting on a book I discussed in a previous episode. That's the Hill, talking about the book Lost in Austin. I did read at the time when I created that episode. And it's an interesting book. It's not great. What will happen if a local workforce is not ready, or worse, not up to the task of filling the jobs in question? Well, during the pandemic, rents here in Vegas went up 25 to 40%, if memory serves, depending on the area or whatever, which priced some of the people who enable the fun economy out of the market. A lot of people couldn't stay here. More power to them, finding a place that wanted them to stay. As someone who lived in Silicon Valley from 1993 to 2001, that was the first time, then 2005 to 2013, I can say that high wage jobs can lead to high cost of living. If that math doesn't work for you, then we're in trouble. And it can happen pretty quickly, like not days, but certainly within a year, within 5 years, definitely. I would wonder aloud which pieces of data account for these specific water considerations, not to mention energy requirements and impact on local workers who are not in these key industries. So in other words, they're not really going to get the high wage jobs anyway. And I hope, since the report is possibly not published as yet, with reporting on this yesterday, as we record this, that transparency will be the word of the day. So I hope there's a lot of data that we can actually look at and do some thinking for ourselves. And the thing I hope very much that I am wrong about is that this is a Formula One plan at scale, accounting for economic diversity, high wage jobs, and revenue going to county and cities. These things are all mentioned. And then we discover that economic impact and environmental impact maybe did not completely account for the smaller players, like small businesses and individuals who live and work here, and then who are suddenly put out. It's, that first year of Formula One was, not every person was happy. I am not accusing anyone of anything, by the way. Well, I guess I'm saying that to be honest, I think I don't want to even blame Formula One. I think the Clark County Commission and the LVCVA were eager, excited, saw dollar signs, and didn't stop to see if anybody was going to get run over by, almost literally run over by all this stuff. So hopefully lessons will be learned. The Formula One races will be in Vegas for another 10 years, 2037. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I'm going to be watching this very closely for 2 reasons, which happen to form the next section: data centers and coherence. First, when we see technology on the list of key industries, I am using the old name. I don't know if it's going to be called key industries or whatever, from the strategy report forthcoming. If hopefully we get access to the publication, whenever that is. We are not necessarily including small businesses and startups. When I say that, not we. Maybe they won't either. So the technology stuff, some people will say that startups here they got to be technology. So we'll see the full data set, hopefully. Maybe more with fintech, the life sciences, whatever comes from ongoing Hollywood 2.0 efforts, which will more likely take the form of Caesars Entertainment Studios pursuits initially, maybe for a while. One of those. Did anyone know this already exists when they were having all this consternation? These deals we'll talk about more in the future, but think BattleBots. But of course, the elephant at the watering hole is AI data centers. That's the one that we want to make sure what the accounting is. Just this week, there was mention of another funding round for a local darling company which thus far has located its AI data centers outside of Nevada and has been largely funded by their GPU partner. Is that a circular accounting trick? Who knows? I don't know anything. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. But they're not actually building new water and energy sinks, the AI data centers. And again, at the Innovation Center, the Switch, they have a bunch of, what is it, Switch 1 through 7 or something? I took a tour of the place. It's pretty cool. So they're already there, and they used no water, and they account for all their energy and so on. So the math has already been done for that. So, and presently there are some protests and some unhappiness about somebody who wanted to build a data center in, of all places, Boulder City. I don't know if they were thinking they were going to throw a hose over into Lake Mead and pull some water out at the old dam there. To which I would say, damn, what are you thinking? I'm here all week. Tip your server. So yeah, just this week, another funding round for AI data centers. So far outside of Nevada, not actually building new water and energy sinks as far as we know, but with $350 million now going toward data centers for this company. Why am I not saying the company? Because I don't like them. $350 million, allegedly. Who can say what they're going to do next? Unless Rob Roy is going to build zero water GPU data centers, this is something to watch with a jeweler's loop and tweezers. I think somebody's going to try to get away with something. And and again, not blaming Formula One in particular, but the Formula One races in Southern Nevada, the way things seem to have gone, it's like you really got to look out for everybody because they are not. Maybe. Allegedly. The thing that continues to concern me, though, is coherence. Did a whole episode about this, specifically about this. Now, the LVGEA, Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, is under new management since last year. Danielle Casey came here from New Mexico. And the Formula One problems, again, not blaming Formula One per se, became apparent 2 years before that, give or take, before she got here. So it is not quite fair to assign F1 concerns to LVGEA plans, not yet anyway. Coherent planning, though, should be something we hope for. No, it should not be something we hope for, but it is something we hope for. We should just have it. We shouldn't have to wish and hope. Where are the community comment periods on publications of plans and strategy prior to implementation? Who wrote that sentence? Jeez. Stakeholders were involved in the construction of the strategy. That much was in the article. Somewhere there's a video, I think, or a picture from, I think it was in April of 2026. The headline intimates that maybe that was a conference to go over some of the strategy elements, perhaps. So it mentioned stakeholders again. I was not in that picture. Were you? I have a feeling we could probably guess the minimum dollar value to be in that room. Were they selected from the group of people in charge of tree removal, perhaps, and footbridge construction? The lack of transparency goes to the cohesion problem, where messaging and general awareness actually match the coherent plans if there are any. But cohesion is not so easy to find in my experience here in Vegas. And again, did the whole episode. It was coherent cohesion or cohesive coherence. Posts on LinkedIn and brief interviews, maybe some social media posts and missing website content are what we have to work with thus far. We will have to see what unfolds. All that said, we do need to consider who will be clamoring for these high-wage jobs mentioned in the article linked, mentioned by me above, and which are the key to something we do not necessarily want. That is the next section, gentrification. This is where I will suggest that taking a glance at the Austin book might be a good idea. I do not, that was my phone, by the way, sorry. I do not recommend buying it unless you are going to use it as a reference. You are better off checking it out of the library or borrowing it from Audible or whatever else you find, wherever you find your books or audio or whatever otherwise. So I checked it out of the library. I read it. It's a good book. It's interesting, but it's not a great book. The message we should take from the book, however, is that rose-colored glasses with dollar signs floating in the field of view can lead to some questionable decisions and unpleasant outcomes, especially when they come from on high. That's why public comments are supposed to be a thing, pardon me. I would say unexpected outcomes. I would say that, except we have the Silicon Valley reference platform to refer to. Pricing normal people out of the market that swings to high-wage specialization too quickly can happen. It has happened, and it will happen again somewhere. I'll give you one guess where. Remember cohesion. The fun economy is selling. The fun economy is a selling point in some cases to draw business to the area. You'll see in the paddock, I think, or some VIP area. There, this was reported on, I think, every year so far, that there's a lot of handshaking. Oh no, I'm going to pause because there's some landscape back-mounted blowing. I'll wait until it gets louder. It's coming. So there's some glad handing. There's some, hey, look at all the stuff we have to offer, all the fun economy. I don't know if people have thought about this. Maybe it's because you live here that doesn't come to mind immediately. But if you tell people how much distraction there is from work, in walking distance from work, that's not necessarily a good thing. There's a certain fraction of people who will fall into a gambling problem or other such things. So there is a little bit of a challenge. So it's not necessarily the best selling point, in my opinion. But when it does happen, when businesses do move to the area, if it happens, cost of living increases may price the fun economy workforce out of the area. This happened in Austin, leaving people who were getting by, living near work, close enough to walk or bike or catch a bus, pushed out to the outskirts where buses didn't run so much and where the bike ride was maybe too long, certainly not walkable. That means they might have to get a car, which they may not have been able to afford. They had to move to they were kicked out of their, like, hey, we're keeping Austin weird. Well, not anymore. Get out of here. We need the space for highly paid, high wage workers. The same exact thing happened in Silicon Valley. As housing got more and more expensive in Silicon Valley, any hope of buying in to the marketplace meant moving to South San Jose, for example. You could move east. You could move out to Livermore. That was not as appealing. Moving south, there were some possibilities. South San Jose, then farther south to Gilroy, then over a little bit to Hollister, and now I don't know if people are buying in Tijuana maybe to get some sort of affordable housing in California. Certainly the Bay Area, the prices rose. Here's a fun fact. The what is it called? The county assessor for Santa Clara County, where a lot of Silicon Valley is, the south part of Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County. Larry Stone. I don't know if he's still in that role. He was a former mayor of Sunnyvale, where I used to live. We had Radio Sunnyvale, podcast network, a lot of different shows. So I went and interviewed him about housing and life in Sunnyvale when he was the mayor and all kinds of stuff. It was fascinating. He's actually pretty interesting. And he was describing how Santa Clara County, when the Great Recession, 2008 and all that, when that happened, Santa Clara County was one of maybe a small number, or maybe just the only one, I can't remember, the counties where property values did not go down in California. So when you have a tech center, when you've completely overhauled the economy and you've got a bunch of high wage employees gentrifying the place, we'll see what happens. But it might be Tijuana. What happens if the fun economy switches to a skeleton crew of miserable people who can't afford to live here anyway? I guess AI will solve that. It always does. I'm not going to speculate here. We need more data. In fact, I did a whole episode about this precise need very recently. Check out Cafe Genius Impresario's past episodes where you found this one. I think it was Show Me Data. But the things we should be watching, maybe in the gentrification community of practice at the Genius Roundtable second cohort, I had to remind you that that's a thing. Maybe in the economic diversification impact community of practice. Maybe a general topic of concern on the coherence front that the cohort of Genius Roundtable participants could talk about in a variety of ways, is how all of this will begin to unfold over the next 2 to 5 years, especially in the face of an uncertain resource availability scenario. Maybe there is a reason water is not next to the temperature at the top of your favorite news site after all. So yeah, these are the sorts of things that, like the water supply, should not be left until there are dire consequences coming up fast. People who depend on our ecosystem, on the economy, on some of these decisions that are in this strategy, these are the topics of discussion for the near term for those people, and they shouldn't be talking to people who are not engaged. You can be sitting at the metaphorical round table or a real round table sometimes. We go to dim sum restaurants. They have the round tables. They're perfect for that. To talk about these things, analyze them, and see what's going on, and maybe offer some input, some amplified voices when conclusions are reached or questions are to be asked. I'm not going to speculate here. We need more data. But things we should be watching, like I said, gentrification, economic diversification impact, and the general topic. I say 2 to 5 years. I cannot imagine that any of this will take place this year. We're already halfway through it. Strategy will be published. As Danielle Casey points out in that article, there are different regions with different administrative boundaries and so on. I will say that when I lived in Sunnyvale, there was a special commission of representatives from the different bordering cities, so they could always very quickly hash out any differences or analyze impact if they needed to, and so on. So that's I hope that's not a problem here, because that's been solved in other places. You just make it a class 1, I don't know, type 1, priority 0 consideration, that inconsistencies of crossing a border and so on. And there are already so many inconsistencies when you're in different zones. Like, oh, can you carry a glass container of anything? Well, you can do that here, but not there. But then when you're crossing that street, no, yes, it has to be in a paper bag. You get the meaning of that concern. Maybe there is a reason, like I said, that water is not next to temperature. Don't pay attention to that. This is the final section. Oh, we're coming in faster than I thought. I thought it was going to be at an hour already. I got 46 minutes on my clock. The next steps. The reason the original Genius Roundtable was formed was to take a look at the issues raised in the now dated, I doubt anybody actually read it except for me and Mo Collins and maybe a couple of other people, the now dated or outdated ecosystem report commissioned by the EDAWN, I always forget what this stands for. It's the economic, what is it called? The LVGA? No, that's the Economics Diversity Alliance, maybe, of Western Nevada. So Washoe County, basically. It's the LVGEA counterpart for up north, Western Nevada. And it was performed, the study was performed across the entire state, but and also specifically in Washoe County and Clark County. Those are the two most populous, of course. That's in the numbers. That's just the way it is. But in a top-down fashion, which I would take issue with. So they were the warm introduction problem, and really going with authority, referencing information that was kind of handed over and pointed to as authoritative, but not truly, not really valid, no longer current. So there are a few things about that report. This is not speaking ill of Mo Collins, who drove the report, her consultancy, and she's now doing bigger and better things with national entrepreneurialism and ecosystem development and so on. So spilt milk, water under the bridge, whatever. The message you will hear repeated often here in this audio program and in anything else we're doing concerns the importance of a bottom-up approach to connect people on the ground who depend on what is happening for their own pursuits in entrepreneurial business, innovation, or both, to data. You should put this data together with what you're doing with your business and what is going to matter, what's going to break your business, what's going to cause problems for foot traffic and destroy your quarterly number, whatever it is. You should be aware and have an option to be involved before decisions are made that are going to be detrimental, especially to small and aspirational and nascent small businesses and businesses that are actually maybe even profitable, which is always nice. It's nice when they can screw that up. And then, so ideally, facts, analysis, and advice, we could all kind of sit together or not. We don't have to sit together, but to ponder these things in a proactive way, communities of practice actually taking initiative and following through in a professional and collaborative way, so that some of what we learn can be passed along in some form to city councils, county commissions, state agencies, and anyone, maybe everyone in between. I have mentioned this countless times, and now with the strategy forming, this is the strategy document, the one that will be published eventually. This is really the place to jump in, the rolling introspection project, privacy-aware community surveys of people in the greater Vegas area, always on, always available to participate in, submit responses to. You yourself do not need to submit. Always open for interaction. That's the key, though. It's not just a one and done. Oh, I forgot to do the survey. It's always on. Always able to be updated so that we can see trends and changes over time. So in other words, I thought this was good 6 months ago, but today I would like to change that to not good. So we will know when people start to decide it's not good, and I'm going to guess things like that will occur in clusters in time. We can see trends and changes over time without the need for participants to worry about their identity and their opinions having impact on their business or anything else. So anonymous. Anonymous, unique identity. So your name is not stored, but you are uniquely you, so that you can alter your responses over time. This should go without saying, but this will be a topic in future episodes that we can be certain of. Of that we can be certain. That would have been a better sentence. Last section, last point. We are here. We have arrived. I got 50 and a half minutes. We can end on a final reminder for today. There will be more, don't worry. The data transparency, rolling surveys of locals at large. Note, I said at large and not the completely misused writ large. Yeah, so rolling surveys of locals at large and discussion by the real stakeholders who depend on the changes made based on input from the more affluent stakeholders is important. So like normal people trying to accomplish normal things, trying to be successful, trying to find the path forward for our startup ideas, our innovative pursuits, our small business. I've mentioned this before. I consider a tech startup and a coffee shop to be not identical, of course, but certainly you're both in a startup mindset, headspace, one of those. The challenges are different, and yet there's a lot that's similar. This is the stuff the Genius Roundtable is made of. It's why participation in our second cohort should be something you should be thinking about, and it's something that you should be mentioned. And it is something you should be mentioned. You should be mentioning to your peers and colleagues. It's something that should be mentioned. Something which should be mentioned. That should be mentioned. Take your pick. The tools and technologies are at our disposal. We have everything we need except for, well, we need the data. Some of it we will get from people. Others we need to ask for. So we'll gather some data. We'll obtain data where we can. The question is whether entrepreneurs and innovators at large are satisfied with being handed outcomes from the plan they had no part in shaping, or if they'd like to listen to people like you who have skin in the game, as they say. If you, as a real stakeholder with normal amounts of wealth, but also of humanity, would care to look out for your peers and your own business and your family and all that stuff, and take this very seriously, but also not, I don't even know how the wealthy view things anymore. I don't even know if they know. But the time is really approaching now where a better understanding of what's going on by people it affects. That's us, that's me, that's you. That time has come. So consider Genius Roundtable. I'm not really plugging it it's not an ad, but it's something to think about, and I hope you will think about it. I think it's becoming more and more important that we kind of have a sense of what's going on, and maybe, when necessary, build a case for demanding change. That's the end of the rant, if this was one. Thank you for listening. As always, don't forget to check out my buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo page. If for no other reason, you don't have to spend any money there, but if for no other reason than to find other places where my publication of my media projects, my various audio programs, there may be others coming, where you can find them, not to mention my various projects and all the other stuff. Do have a fine time whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully there's a weekend nearby that you can enjoy. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck. Think about being in a community of practice infrastructure and taking a good hard look at what's going on, not in a conspiracy theory way, I'm not going that, but as someone with a stake in the game, you should have a voice that can be heard. So that's one of the goals. Take care now. You can hear my voice is about to give out, so we'll leave it there. Bye.